Have you ever wondered what really goes on behind the palace walls? Well, buckle up because today we're diving into the scandalous love lives of 15 British royals who definitely didn't follow the rules. These aren't the fairy tale princes and princesses you learned about in school. Oh no. These royals had more romantic drama than a whole season of your favorite TV show. And trust me, number 1 is going to absolutely blow your mind. So let's get started. Let's kick things off with number 15, Princess Margaret. Now, you might think being the Queen's younger sister would mean you'd have to be extra careful about your reputation, right? Well, Princess Margaret didn't get that memo. Born in 1930, Margaret was known as the rebellious royal who loved to party and didn't care much about what people thought. She had a famous romance with a divorced man named Peter Townsend, which caused a massive scandal in the 1950s because royals weren't supposed to marry divorced people back then. But that was just the beginning. Throughout her life, Margaret had numerous affairs and relationships that kept the tabloids buzzing. She was married to photographer Anthony Armstrong-Jones, but even that didn't slow her down. She was known for her wild parties, her glamorous lifestyle, and her many romantic connections with different men. Margaret showed the world that even princesses wanted to live life on their own terms. Moving on to number 14, we have King George IV. This king, who ruled from 1820 to 1830, was basically the party animal of his time. Even before he became king, when he was just the Prince of Wales, George was famous for his excessive lifestyle. He loved fancy clothes, expensive food, and most importantly, he loved the ladies. George had so many mistresses that historians actually lost count. He secretly married a Catholic widow named Maria Fitzherbert in 1785, which was actually illegal because royals needed permission to marry and couldn't marry Catholics. But did he care? Not really. Later, he was forced into an official marriage with Princess Caroline of Brunswick, but their relationship was a disaster from day one. George reportedly got drunk at their wedding and spent most of his married life trying to avoid his wife while continuing his affairs with various women. He was basically the definition of a royal bad boy. Number 13 brings us to King Charles II, and let me tell you, this guy really earned his nickname the Merry Monarch. Charles ruled from 1660 to 1685, and he might hold the record for the most recognized illegitimate children of any British king. We're talking about at least 12 children from at least 7 different mistresses. And those are just the ones we know about for sure. Charles was so open about his affairs that he actually gave his illegitimate children noble titles and made sure they were taken care of. His most famous mistress was an actress named Nell Gwynn, who went from selling oranges in a theatre to living in luxury as the king's favorite. Charles was married to Catherine of Braganza, but he basically ignored her in favor of his mistresses. The crazy thing is that despite all his romantic adventures, Charles was actually pretty popular as a king because he brought back fun and entertainment after a very serious period in English history. At number 12, we have Prince Albert Victor, who was Queen Victoria's grandson. Albert Victor, who everyone called Eddie, died young at age 28, but he managed to pack a lot of scandal into his short life. There were constant rumors about his wild behavior and questionable relationships. Some historians believe he was involved with women he shouldn't have been seeing, while others suggest he might have had relationships with men, which was completely illegal and shocking in Victorian England. There were even wild conspiracy theories linking him to serious crimes, though most historians now think those were just rumors. What we do know for sure is that Eddie had a reputation for being found in places a royal prince definitely shouldn't be. His family was so worried about his behavior that they tried to arrange a marriage quickly to settle him down, but he died before that could happen. Number 11 takes us to King Edward VII, who is actually the same Prince Eddie's father. Edward was Queen Victoria's son, and he basically spent his entire adult life waiting to become king because his mother lived so long. During those waiting years, Edward became legendary for his affairs. We're talking about dozens of mistresses, including famous actresses, aristocrats, and society beauties. He even had special furniture designed for his romantic encounters. Edward was married to Princess Alexandra of Denmark, who apparently just accepted his behavior and looked the other way. He had such a reputation that furniture makers actually created something called a siege d'amour specifically for him. When he finally became king in 1901 at age 59, he didn't slow down at all. He continued his romantic adventures right up until his death in 1910. Halfway through our list at number 10, we meet King Henry I. This medieval king ruled from 1100 to 1135, and he holds an impressive record that still stands today. Henry I had at least 25 illegitimate children, making him the British royal with the most acknowledged children born outside of marriage. 25. That we know of. Henry used his many children strategically, marrying them off to important nobles to build political alliances. He was married twice officially, but that barely slowed down his romantic adventures. Henry had mistresses throughout England and Normandy, and he made sure to take care of all his children, giving them land, money, and important positions. It's wild to think about how different things were back then, where a king could openly have this many children with different women and nobody really batted an eye. Number 9 brings us to Queen Catherine Howard, who was King Henry VIII's fifth wife. Now, Catherine's story is really sad, but it definitely fits our list. She became queen when she was probably only about 17 years old, married to Henry VIII, who was in his late 40s and not in great health. Catherine was young, beautiful, and had been raised in a household where nobody paid much attention to proper behavior. Before she married the king, Catherine had romantic relationships with at least 2 men, including a music teacher and a young man named Francis Derham. The really risky part? She apparently continued a relationship with another man, Thomas Culper, even after she became queen. In Tudor England, this wasn't just scandalous, it was considered treason because the queen's children were supposed to be the king's heirs. When Henry found out about her past relationships and possible affair, he was furious. Poor Catherine was executed in 1542 when she was still just a teenager. Her story shows how dangerous it was to be promiscuous when you were married to one of the most powerful men in the world. At number 8, we have Prince George, Duke of Kent, who was King George V's son. George was born in 1902 and lived during the early 20th century when royals were expected to be very proper and dignified. But George was anything but proper. He had affairs with both men and women at a time when homosexuality was illegal in Britain. There were rumors about his relationships with famous figures, including some suggesting he had an affair with a well-known playwright. George also struggled with substance problems, which was kept very quiet by the royal family. He had a reputation for wild parties and questionable behavior that worried his family terribly. Eventually, his family basically forced him to settle down and get married to Princess Marina of Greece to try to calm the scandals. Sadly, George died in a plane crash during World War II when he was only 39 years old. Number 7 takes us to King William IV, who ruled from 1830 to 1837. Before he became king, William was a naval officer, and he definitely lived up to the reputation sailors had for having a girl in every port. His longest relationship was with an actress named Dorothea Jordan, and they were together for about 20 years. During that time, they had 10 children together. 10. And William was actually a devoted partner and father during this relationship. But here's where it gets messy. When William was in his 50s and realized he might actually become king, he dumped Dorothea to try to find a suitable royal wife who could give him legitimate heirs. He tried to marry several wealthy women, but they all turned him down because of his reputation and his 10 illegitimate children. Eventually, he did marry Princess Adelaide, though they never had surviving children. William remained close to his illegitimate children throughout his life and made sure they were taken care of, but his treatment of Dorothea was pretty cold. We're getting into the really juicy territory now with number 6, and that's King Henry VIII himself. Now, everyone knows Henry had 6 wives, but that's not even the half of it. Between marriages, Henry had numerous mistresses and affairs. His most famous mistress was Mary Boleyn, who was actually the sister of his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Think about how awkward that must have been. Henry also had an affair with Anne Boleyn for years before they actually got married, which caused him to break away from the Catholic Church entirely. Throughout his life, Henry was constantly pursuing women, discarding wives, and moving on to the next attractive lady at court. He had at least one illegitimate child that he acknowledged, Henry Fitzroy, though there were probably others. What makes Henry particularly notable on this list isn't just the number of his relationships, but the dramatic and often tragic way they ended, including executing 2 of his wives. At number 5, we have Princess Sophia Dorothea of Celle, who was married to the man who would become King George I. Now, Sophia Dorothea's story is particularly tragic. She was forced into a marriage with her cousin George, and it was miserable from the start. George openly kept mistresses and treated Sophia Dorothea terribly. So what did she do? She started her own affair with a Swedish count named Philip Christoph von Königsmarck. The two exchanged passionate love letters and planned to run away together. But here's where things get dark. The count mysteriously disappeared in 1694 and was probably murdered on orders from George's father. Sophia Dorothea was divorced, branded an adulteress, and locked away in a castle for the remaining 32 years of her life. She never got to see her children again. Her husband went on to become King George I of Great Britain, but Sophia Dorothea spent the rest of her days alone as punishment for seeking love outside her unhappy marriage. Number 4 is King Charles II again. Just kidding. Number 4 is actually Anne Boleyn, King Henry VIII's second wife. Now, history has gone back and forth on Anne's reputation, but during her time, she was definitely considered scandalous. Before she married Henry, Anne was at the French court, which had a reputation for being pretty wild. She had at least one serious relationship before Henry started pursuing her. When Henry became obsessed with her, Anne played a clever game, refusing to become just another mistress and holding out for marriage. This led to Henry breaking with the Catholic Church and changing the entire religious landscape of England. But after Anne became queen, her enemies spread rumors about her having affairs with multiple men, including her own brother, which was almost certainly false. These accusations were used to execute her in 1536. Whether Anne was actually promiscuous or just a victim of vicious rumors, her reputation for scandal definitely earned her a spot on this list. We're almost at the top now with number 3, and this is Prince Augustus Frederick, Duke of Sussex, another son of King George III. Augustus was basically the rebel of his family. In 1793, he married Lady Augusta Murray without getting permission from his father, which was required by law for royals. When his father found out, he had the marriage declared invalid. But did Augustus care? Nope. He and Augusta continued living together and had 2 children. After Augusta died, Augustus married again without permission to Lady Cecilia Bugin. That marriage was also declared invalid by the royal family. Throughout his life, Augustus had various romantic relationships and absolutely refused to play by the royal rules about marriage. He believed in marrying for love rather than duty, which was a revolutionary idea for a royal in the late 1700s and early 1800s. His family was constantly frustrated with him, but Augustus just kept doing his own thing. And now, drumroll please, we're at number 2. This spot goes to King George VI's brother, Prince George, who we mentioned earlier. Wait, no. Number 2 actually goes to Prince Albert, who later became King George VI's father. Hold on, I'm getting my Georges mixed up. Let me clarify. Number 2 is actually Princess Louise, Queen Victoria's 4th daughter. Louise was artistic, independent, and definitely not your typical Victorian princess. She married a commoner, which was unusual for a princess, but the marriage was reportedly not very happy. There were strong rumors throughout her life that Louise had affairs, including possibly with her sculpting instructor and other artistic figures. Some historians even suggest she might have had an illegitimate child that was raised quietly away from public view. Louise was known for spending long periods away from her husband and keeping company with various men and women in artistic circles. She lived until 1939, maintaining her independent lifestyle well into old age and never confirming or denying the rumors that followed her. And finally, the moment you've been waiting for. Number 1, the most promiscuous British royal in history, the one that will absolutely shock you, King Edward VIII, who gave up the throne to marry Wallis Simpson. Now wait, you might be thinking, didn't he give up everything for love? How does that make him promiscuous? Well, here's what they don't teach you in school. Before Wallis Simpson, Edward had numerous affairs with married women. And here's the really shocking part, even while he was obsessively pursuing Wallis and claiming she was the love of his life, even after he gave up the throne to marry her in 1936, Edward continued having affairs. That's right. The man who supposedly loved Wallis so much that he abandoned being king was cheating on her. There's historical evidence of affairs both before and during his marriage to Wallis. Even more shocking, there were rumors about Wallis having her own affairs during their marriage, and that their relationship might have been more about convenience and drama than actual faithfulness. The greatest love story of the 20th century? More like one of the greatest acts in royal history. Edward and Wallis lived together until his death in 1972, but their relationship was far more complicated and scandalous than the romantic story we were told. So there you have it, 15 British royals who definitely kept things interesting behind palace doors. From medieval kings with dozens of children to modern princes and princesses breaking all the rules, the British royal family has never been boring. These stories remind us that royals are human beings with the same desires, mistakes, and complicated relationships as everyone else. They just happen to have crowns and castles, which makes their scandals way more entertaining for the rest of us. If you enjoyed learning about these scandalous royals and their wild love lives, make sure to smash that like button right now. Seriously, hit it. And don't forget to share this video with your friends because I guarantee they don't know these crazy stories about British royals. Subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss another fascinating history video. We've got tons more royal scandals, historical mysteries, and amazing stories coming your way. Drop a comment below and let me know which royal shocked you the most. Was it number 1? Or did another royal on this list surprise you even more? I read all the comments and I love hearing your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.